Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. Sorry to say, including yours. Actually, I'm not sorry to say. I just apologize that it'll be difficult for you. Okay, so we don't have a Mac, and we don't have a zebra yet. So I thought maybe a little light reading. In an idea for idea translation of the Bible at Genesis 13:1, which when you read this in the King James, it really just doesn't say much. It's just kind of rattling on. But an idea for idea translation is much more interesting. The emerging people and Jehovah's destroyers, formerly called Abram and Lot, which is like just folks' names that don't mean anything to an English mind. It will be shown by the exalted Father that the ascension offered is against the limitations of that same princess wife bride. Princess wife bride there meaning the people, specifically you. And that absolutely every one of them, not in the enveloping covering, will grow dark in the evil parched land southward, referring to the earth being destroyed, that if you don't take the ascension, you stay with the earth gets destroyed, you get destroyed. Thus the exalted Father raked together the firebrands. Firebrands again mean you fiery ones, meaning you're spirited. Who are weightily redeemed. This weightily redeemed means redeemed for a great price. Flock that yearned for silver and shimmering gold. Yep, that's something we're very, very concerned with here on this earth. That's absolutely true. A period belongs there. Oh, I see. The sentence continues there. Period does not belong there. In the departing journey away from the evil parched land southward, by the as yet revealed house of God. So not yet revealed house of God is what's going to do this. The house of God, even as the established home for them, a shining tabernacle that arrives and will begin opening for the first time among them and is called the house of God. The house of God stands between them and a heap of ruins. That is, if you don't want to be part of the heap of ruins, between you and the heap of ruins is the house of God. You're welcome to the house of God. If you stay, you become part of the heap of ruins. So yes, it's very, very consistent and very repetitive. Peace and respect, spooky bed hair. And I hear a beep in the background, which means we have a guest. Welcome, Mac. How you doing?
Hey, Richard. You hear me all right?
Yeah, it's okay. It's a little distant. And now it's a little off. And that's it. You're out of here, buddy. I'm kicking you. Try again. It's not working. It's not on StreamYard. It is the device or on the computer. Just keep trying, and I'll notice when you come on. Okay. All right. I'll go back to reading this for now. Hopefully Mac can come back with microphone. And the before established home, which is a sacrificial altar, that is the earth we live on now, that established home, is being called the sacrificial altar. Why? Because it's hot on the inside. It's got four corners on the surface, i.e. the four cardinal directions. And on the surface of it is where animals will be burnt. That is when the earth is destroyed by fire. If something is still here, it will, of course, be destroyed with the earth. Let's try that again. What you got, Mac?
Good. I tested it this time. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Excellent.
It's good enough. Just don't touch it. It's not as good as your usual microphone. I don't know. You know what the difference is. I don't know. Okay, it sounds like it's maybe coming through the computer or something, because usually your microphone is much better than this.
Oh, I bet you it's the webcam.
See if you
Dang
can
it.
find. Do you know how to find that, or do you need help with finding that?
It is.
Got it.
There it is.
Ding, ding, ding.
There it is.
That explains it.
You found it a lot faster than I would have. But anyway.
Redeemed.
Good morning, sir. How is you?
I was listening to you as I jumped in, so I put my little tagline down there.
Oh, I did not even see your tagline.
Redeemed
Where is
for a
that?
great price, it says.
Yes, redeemed for a great price. I think it's very consistent, this whole thing, and I don't see anything in the Old Testament that doesn't refer to Jesus and the Father and the angels, all of it. So it begs the question to me, how do we have Jews that are not Messianic Jews?
Mm-hmm. Well,
but anyway, you were saying?
I think the answer to that is they interact with the same Christians you do. So.
That might be a good answer. That might be a good answer.
So what are you reading here? Which 13:2 is this?
That's 13:2 of the Bible, without the fanciful thinking, without the metaphors, and with all the words translated, or what I call the coherent Bible.
Right. So yeah. Genesis?
Yeah, that's Genesis 13 something is what I was on just then. Cool. If you looked up Abram and Lot,
okay.
It's that story. Of course, when you read it as Abram and Lot, it doesn't say those things, because they didn't translate the word Abram, and they didn't translate the word Lot, and they didn't translate all these other words because they thought they were names.
Right.
So if you don't do that, you don't end up with the same thing. What's that?
So what do they say? What does Abram mean?
Abram means father of many.
Okay.
Like Abraham means father of the nations, or multitudes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's about him going from being like the primary, into him having a good sized family, into him having a ridiculously large family, something like that.
And Lot?
I can't remember what the definition of Lot is. Hold on a second. I'll look it up for you. It's so funny, because if you look up these names, you could just look up the names and you have the baseline of the story. True. You wouldn't think it would be like that, but it is. It's like they were accurately named to the high point that they appear in the story.
Right.
And the more often they appear, the more generalized the name is going to be.
Right.
It's going to have more applications. It's not going to be so specific. Loot, definition H3876, has a root word, which has a root word, and finally a primitive word. In the idea of wrapping up. Okay.
Like a baby, or like finishing up?
Something. Wrapping up anything. A veil, and then the derivative word from that, covering. So can you guess, by his name being covering, wrapping up, like a veil, can you guess from that what his position is going to be in this?
It sounds like the adversary.
It could be.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly could be. But you have to remember that Lot's a good guy.
Right.
He's a good guy in the story. And that he's cousin to the father. He's cousin of Abram.
Covering up, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I can imagine a cousin of the father who covers something of you.
Oh, covers sin?
Yes.
That kind of covering. Gotcha.
Yes.
This snow-covered turd.
It's like putting lipstick on a pig, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, it makes him
Gotcha.
look a little better, but it ain't gonna help really.
And you say he's the nephew? No, the son. Yeah, nephew of Abram. Okay, son of
Yeah,
Haran.
yeah, yeah.
Nephew.
It's like, and across all the religions, it's nephew, brother. It's always like a younger protege, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, and
The
that's
covering which is
consistent.
spread over all nations.
There you go. Yeah.
That which covers their faces and makes them sad.
Which word? Which kind of covering is that? Makes them sad.
That's from Gesenius.
Oh, okay.
Says,
You read Jusinius in the bottom.
yeah. He's cross-referencing Isaiah 25:7.
Oh, let me look at that. The word lot. Jusinius. Oh, that's a short entry by Jusinius. Yes. And in fact, there's one way that veil or covering is used, like the veil or curtain of the temple.
Right.
And
The one
and
that's
that at the
rent.
great quaking of the earth, right? It's rent in half, and everyone, it's no longer an obstruction because
Right.
it's rent in half.
And that's
And
the veil of ignorance.
yes,
That's
the veil of
bad.
ignorance, which makes us sad. Yes,
Right. Right.
that is, we don't see the truth, and we
Right.
feel like there's no hope, and of course, but it's just imposed ignorance that we don't know everything right now, although they promise that they have all the necessary truths we need. Did you want to chase that down further, or did you bring a topic?
Oh, frankly,
Whichever.
no, I didn't. I came in kind of blind today. I've had a rough weekend, and I'm finally landing on a day off, and it's good. But I was grappling with some tough feelings this morning as I woke up and kind of assessed myself. I honestly forgot it was Wednesday. I got your email and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got that. And for a minute, for like maybe 3 seconds, it was a bit of a burden, like an obligation. But then I started looking forward to it and had some breakfast and felt better. So,
Oh, good.
but yeah, but right before, while I was having breakfast, I was talking to my daughter about Easter.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm giving her kind of, I don't teach her what's true about religion, but
Wait, how old is this person?
she's 10.
Okay.
And she doesn't believe in the Easter bunny, and and she doesn't really understand religious ideas, but she's
Right,
not
of
that
course.
curious about them either. So, but
Sure.
once in a while, she knows that I am. She knows that I'm really interested and sees me reading Bibles and stuff like that, and having discussions like this. So, she once in a while will ask a question, and she's excited for Easter because there's chocolate involved in Easter.
Oh, isn't?
So yeah, that's always fun. And I talked about the idea of redemption and the idea of sacrifice and the idea of how those things can be associated, or how we can gain through sacrifice. I talked a little bit about those things, and I realized that you contextualize the thing being celebrated, the event being celebrated on Easter in a different way than I've ever heard anybody contextualize it, which is as a demonstrating miracle to sort of almost like a sales pitch. like check it out, this is real. Like we're talking about real power here that you've got books about. And so of course I find that challenging, and I guess we could definitely talk about Easter today. It's on my mind anyway.
Sure.
You know why I find it challenging? It's not just because it's unfamiliar and kind of uncomfortably bereft of any kind of mysticism, but but it's also, which, you know, that makes me uncomfortable. A big part of pursuing God is, hey, Zebra's in the chat.
That
For me,
it doesn't have
anyways.
mysticism in it. That makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Weird.
Right.
Explain that to me.
I think it's because I'm a mystic. You know,
I'm a mystic.
I
Because I'm a
seek
mystic,
direct,
Richard. Come on.
I seek and feel like I maybe have achieved once in a while direct contact with, you know, God. So that direct experience is called the mystical experience, you know. And
I would never say that that isn't possible. In fact, I try to teach people how to repeat that process.
no, I know you do. Yeah, I know you do.
So if mysticism, or if the roots of mysticism, or the best evidence for the ideas of mysticism, are personal experience in shared prayer, where you gain something, I know we don't have a mechanism to explain how that works, just like we don't have a mechanism for gravity.
That's what I mean, though. When you, so okay, so let's. This is a topic I've acquired some language to talk about the topic of mysticism and the mystical experience, and I think you've experienced it more than I have, so I think you could talk about it really cogently as well. There's an aspect that's a common aspect of what's called the mystical experience, where there's a feeling of oneness, for instance, like where like you are part of everything and everything is part of you and flowing through you. And I think we lack good language to talk about that, but you know, the mystical traditions provide these ideas that don't parse logically necessarily, you know, but they somehow resonate with people who have gone through these experiences. They somehow feel they feel like the correct language, you know, but then it gets flowery and it gets silly and it gets easy to dismiss. And it only seems to have meaning for the people who contextualize their experience with that kind of, with those ideas, with, you know, so, you know, guys that say, hey man, you know, it's all good and we're all one or whatever, like those guys are annoying. Yeah. And kind of, yeah. But also,
that was good. That was good, sir. Please keep going.
Death to all crocs, my man. So, you know, mystical language might, you know, be offensive, or, oh, there we go. Quiet dark room in 1 hour. Yeah. Right.
What's this about a dark room?
He said he's developing pictures in his head.
Oh,
about God.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I hate to add this, but many years ago, I heard a joke, which is now an old joke, but I rather liked it at the time. And it was, what did the Buddhist monk say to the hot dog vendor?
I didn't know this one. Sorry.
He said, make me one with everything.
I tell it in the long form, but yes, I like that.
Oh, okay. What's the other way to tell it? I'm curious.
Well, the long form is, you know, the young Buddhist man, you know, decides to become a monk and studies for years and deeply wants and understands the idea of oneness, you know. But in his homeland hears a rumor of this man in a foreign country, you know. And seeks him out by name and by appearance. Nice. And it turns out that he's in New York City. So he goes to New York City to find the man. Finds the man simple, poor, pushing a hot dog cart, you know, on Central Park. So there you go.
Okay. That's a better way to tell it, I think. I think you're on to something.
I think so.
So you're a mystic now, Mac, or have you always been one?
Well, Richard asked me why it seemed uncomfortable for me to interact with a religious interpretation that lacks mysticism. And I answered because I'm a mystic, but I was being a little flippant. I don't know if I would really. I'm not trying to assume an identity there, you know.
Well, there's
But
often in humor a bit of truth, and
yeah, I
maybe
mean,
there's a bit of truth in that,
there is truth in the fact that the version of religion that I'm familiar with includes a lot of highfalutin illogical ideas, and I find beauty in those ideas a lot of times, and I also find that they reflect experiences that I've had that have been the way that I used to talk about um at least one of the ways I used to talk about it is I'd say, look, language is inadequate to explain these experiences. We don't. It's translinguistic, at least with the language we've developed so far. So we have people sharing this experience and having it through different methods. You know, meditating in your closet or dancing all night long, or whatever, like lots of study or mantra work or whatever. People acquire these mystical experiences. Sometimes it's spontaneous in different ways. But I believe the experience is very similar, but then they come back from it and write about it or speak about it in very different ways, because that's from each other, because they all have inadequate tools to describe it. I think so. What happens for me is when I come across something that looks like somebody trying to describe that, I try to relate it to what I've experienced in prayer or in heightened
I do that too, but
mystical moments.
at the same time, if they like talk about parts of it that I don't think are part of the experience, then I think they gained that from their culture and from their tradition and not from their experience, and I think they're full of crap.
There is a
sure
book you might like there, Mac. I read it years ago, and it was written by a 13th century English monk, who, of course, I read it long after he was dead.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so yeah. So the book was called The Cloud of Unknowing, and he was talking about the basic mystical notion of developing a mystical union with God, even though you're this clumsy creature on earth trying to make your way. And while it referenced that sometimes early in the process, a monk might meditate on the nature of the crucifixion, or this or that, he said that eventually you move beyond this, where you're not thinking about theology or God's actions on earth, but instead humbly trying to reach God and be one with him. And it was really beautiful, and it took Christianity and removed all the interpretation and misinterpretation and fiddlesticks, and get past all that. And it was really beautiful. And it was almost enough to make me, even thinking about it, was almost enough to make me want to be a Christian again.
Oh, cool.
But of course, nothing's that good. But it was a beautiful notion. And there's no reason why the Godhead couldn't be replaced with a more Buddhist notion of the universe instead.
You know what? I also think, I think what I mean, there's 75 chapters of this thing, so I don't know what it actually says, but it sounds like, embracing some humility in these ideas is appropriate, and saying, hey, it's God that matters, not our ability to extrapolate God or whatever, So
here's the mistake. Sorry, go ahead.
No, if I'm making a mistake, yeah.
No. Here's the mistake that I think people make. Humility, I think, in that idea set that the monk is speaking of, is things like not having pride in yourself or pride in your church, that you have these standards you have to keep to. Okay. Not that you're unworthy or you should be diminished in some way, or you're this filthy animal that's wrong. And I think that actually guilt, especially self-loathing, will keep a person from being able to have an honest experience because they believe they don't deserve it. And this is why people have to do all of this. 20 Hail Marys. Why? Guilt. I knew a guy who was trying to accomplish 3 million iterations of a mantra.
Jesus.
Wow. Now, I don't know that he ever got there. I don't know. Perhaps he would still be working on it right now, because it was only about 7 years ago that I met the gentleman, and he was getting close to 1 million. How he kept track, I have no freaking idea. But that's what his claim was. Maybe he was crazy. I don't know. But all of these ideas are like, it's either you're causing a chemical state in yourself, in which case it's not the same experience. You just would perceive it as a prayer experience, or you're performing some function because you need forgiveness, because something's wrong with you. And I think that none of that is actually true.
Or you're just doing a magic spell, You're like,
right.
getting
Well,
God to do
whatever
something,
excuse
or getting
you
the universe
need,
to do something. Yeah, by
whatever
doing the right
excuse
thing.
you need to get. Maybe it's ayahuasca that'll pull the log out of your ass. I don't know what you need, but I know you don't need a log up your spine where you can't consider things, and you can't be flexible, and you can't be honest. I know you don't need that.
Right.
I'm sorry, I totally interrupted that.
No.
So you guys were talking about language problems, and I think that's a real issue.
Yeah, the English language has over 1 million words, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. But sometimes when discussing philosophy, it seems that even the mighty English language creaks and groans under the weight of ideas.
Yeah.
At least it does to me. Maybe because I'm not smart enough. Because I have had terrible trouble. I sort of backed into philosophy when I was a student, and I felt insufficient to the task. It was really weird.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, it gets really heady fast.
I never felt intimidated by anything I had to read or write. I had the same difficulties of anybody else, but I've stumbled through writing my own contracts and then having them reviewed by a lawyer because it was cheaper that way. I'm not intimidated by language at all, and there I am suddenly reading philosophy and trying to understand it as it applies to English literature, and finding myself completely flummoxed and not knowing what was bullshit or what was the straight goods. So, so there was a bit of humble bragging there, I know, but it was just the subject matter was quite beyond me. Sorry, I think I sort of interrupted.
No, that was perfect. Really.
Okay. The where are you, Richard, in terms of the study of philosophy? Are you more
Santa Fe, New Mexico?
Yes. Okay. I mean, do you find yourself flummoxed, or is it smooth sailing?
Okay, so it seems with what I have tasted that I like the total dish. I haven't eaten it all yet.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem like there's parts of it I'm reviewing now that seem like difficult concepts to grasp. Not yet.
You're talking about the subject of philosophy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
But I'm a weirdo who loves puzzles anyway. Like one time, just for fun, a friend of mine was he had already taken the examination and passed to become a defense lawyer.
Oh, okay.
And he had this old book laying around. It's like this like the size of a phone book, man. It was like that. And all the exercises in it were logic puzzles.
Oh, cool.
And that's just big fun. I just love that. Like, oh, logic puzzles. Oh, great. Awesome. Like, how do you know this witness is not telling the truth, or this witness is telling the truth? And how can you show that from this testimony, from these words, stuff like that. But I haven't gotten very far in it, Zebra. I am an infant in all of these studies because I just didn't care, and I was proficient with a backhoe, and I didn't need to learn anything else. So, so I'm like 10 years old in this now, and that's an infant, basically. So
I know the feeling. I remember reading the sort of bog standard philosophy for dummies it was called The Story of Philosophy, and it was Will Durant, I think, wrote it. Okay. So I'm reading this thing from cover to cover. I find it very interesting. And then afterwards, you've really hit a wall when after reading this thing, you don't have nothing to say. You have nothing to say and are not sure what you've read. And that I thought was a sure sign of stumbling my way through a topic in a book. And
well, perhaps it needs more than one review, and perhaps that wasn't the perfect explanation to your specific brain. Don't give up, because it may be simpler in other ways to you explained otherwise. To Puffalopagus, connection with an immaterial God is a supernatural event. Yes, it would be. But I don't think that's possible. And I don't think any religion is actually claiming that, but only practitioners of religions are claiming that. And this ties back, which is why I brought it up, to what Zebra and Mac were saying in what is communication. I don't think there is an immaterial God. I think there are living beings who are actual in reality, who have immaterial constructs that they live their life by, such as if you're a humanitarian, you believe and do certain things because of that belief. Now, humanitarianism did not twist your arm, although it did make demands of you. You see, and when you act on humanitarianism, you will perform certain functions in reality that change physical reality because you're a physical being able to align yourself to humanitarianism and act on reality. And that's all the angels are claiming, is that there's this overarching idea. They follow that. And when they follow that and act on reality, there are physical results because they are physical. And I think that's all that's being claimed. And though our language does fall short of being able to say these things well, perhaps it's not just the language, I think perhaps also it's the science that falls short, that science hasn't gotten far enough. For instance, if I could say something like, and I'm totally just going to make this up out of my butt, but if I could say something like, oh, yeah, long ago, people thought that that intrinsic sense of being like someone's behind you, even though you can't see them. Yeah, it turns out that that's quantum effect 345,
Sure.
which is it's sensed by the amygdala and processed through the corpus of the hypothalamus and all of the attaching, and that's how you know that that's there, because science has totally like tracked that whole thing. If I could say something like that, we'd all go, "Oh yeah, okay, sure."
Right.
See, but we haven't done that. So you can't say, what the mechanism is. And now you're stuck with language that's insufficient for naming something because you don't know what it is. Now, that does not dismiss the experience. Right. It has held up in court several times. I knew the guy was behind me. I quickly turned and punched him. I knew the guy was behind me. I quickly turned and shot and killed him. This is held up in court. We know this happens. And if you can do a very, very simple examination of this, even in your mind right now, think of how many times that you thought somebody was looking at you and they were, versus how many times you were wrong and there was nobody looking at you. Because what you normally feel and do when, if you're a good looking guy or maybe an extremely hideous guy, and girls are trying to be sneaky, they don't want to get caught, because girls check out guys, but they don't want the guy to know that. So you can do this like every day of the week. Just go into public and pay attention to that part of your sensory perception to see if someone does look at you, and then try to catch them at it. And what you'll see is them turn their head away real quick. And we do that all the time, and we dismiss it, right? We don't go, oh, that's significant. Dude, think about that. It's not like you had a mirror in front of you that you can see people behind you all the time. Who walks around like that? But you know if someone, and you're usually right, and I mean a good 80% of the time or better. For me, since I don't give a crap that people look at me or not in public, because, well, I put myself in public, I don't get like paranoid about that. So it's been for me probably, unless I was thinking, do people look at me and causing my own bias? Dude, I've been right other than that, like 100% of the time. When I get the feeling someone's looking at me, I look, and I try to do it extra quick on purpose just to set them up so they don't know I'm about to look. I don't like turn real slow. I do it real fast. And then, yeah, I see them turning their head away from me.
Huh.
Yeah. But certainly that's happened to you guys. You've seen that happen. Have you ever done a survey on purpose?
I'm going to have to try. I don't think Zebra can get good data on this because people just look at him because he's a zebra.
Being a zebra.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to try. Everyone's looking at him.
You see a zebra sitting at a restaurant having a nice salad, and you go, man, I don't believe I saw that. Everybody looks at the Z.
I'm going to have to try that.
Still up there. There was a wonderful series of commercials, which is a strange sentence to say.
Yeah.
Where it was about the zoo, and you would see an exasperating looking zoo employee in a Jeep talking about, these people aren't from the zoo. I don't know why they're doing this. And it's just really confusing to the public, and blah, blah, blah. And they come out here and they cause trouble. And then he suddenly looks, and on the road is a guy in a zebra costume and saying, I'm a zebra, and running across. And then these zoo employees come out of nowhere and tackle him. And it's...
what are they selling?
Oh, just the idea of coming to the zoo.
Oh.
And the idea that there was this, controversial thing going on of people dressing up, pretending they're zoo animals. That's because great. They want to get in on the action. It was just brilliant. It was inspired, It made me want to go to the zoo, which I would have if I could have seen that. Animals, There's also a zoo somewhere that does a routine where, like, twice a year, they have people in animal costumes escape, in air quotes, from the zoo. And then the zoo employees have to track them down because they've made their way into the local city. And it's sort of an attention-seeking device on the part of the zoo, but it's also got a practical purpose. That way you can train your employees to how to successfully screen an area and make sure there isn't one of their animals there. Sorry, that was really off topic.
It was somehow it was on topic. I'm sure it was.
I'm sure it was. Yes, that's the way to look at it. Oh, wow, the chat has wandered off. I don't think they like this conversation at all.
No, they're smack on topic. Actually, it's you're the one that wandered off, like a zoo animal that got loose.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be anything supernatural about accessing data on the cloud, and I don't think there's anything supernatural about accessing the Akashic records. Now, I can't tell you what the mechanism is and how it works because we haven't discovered it scientifically, But if indeed it does work, there's nothing supernatural about that. It must be physically natural.
Isn't that an
something
Edgar
we do.
Casey thing?
Yeah.
Edgar Casey is an example of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
talked
but
about
how do
that.
we know it wasn't bullshit, though?
Because people made money and kept coming back, making money off of him. And it was like destroying his life because he was so in such demand.
Mm.
And these people weren't stupid. These people were using him to invest.
Mm.
They weren't asking questions like, how's my dead mother feel about me? They were asking which horse is going to win the race next Wednesday.
Holy crap.
I didn't know that.
In
I
fact,
did
it
hear he made
inspired
some
my
bad-
mom to do something. It was about the time that I was an infant and can't remember. But she kept the letters and showed them to us when we were old enough to understand the concept. My mom read of Edgar Casey. She thought that was interesting and maybe plausible. Okay. But wanted to test it. So she designed a double-blind scientific test. And here it is. My dad was off the coast of Korea. So she writes him a letter. Of course, a letter takes 2 weeks. Back then, by airmail. She wrote him a letter saying, hey, when's the next day you have off? You know, I want to try this experiment. I want you to like be in a comfortable position, laying down, relaxed but awake, you know, thinking about me. And I'm going to do the same thing and think about you. And I want us to, you know, in great detail, draw the environment. All right. Of course, that's a bad scientific survey because she told him what to do. But luckily, he was a man and he forgot. So he agrees. They set up a date, you know, his next day off, right? She sends him the letter of her results, expecting to get a letter of his results, but instead there was an apology letter in the stack of letters. Okay. I'm a guy. I forgot. I'm so sorry. It's not that I don't love, you know, typical guy stuff.
Sure.
You know, I still love you, but I'm an idiot. I got distracted. Okay. So here's the description. I read this myself in my youth. Here was the description of what she saw him doing. He wasn't laying down on a couch. He was sitting at a very, very large desk. He was in his dungarees or casual uniform. Okay. And him being a high-ranking at the time enlisted man, you would only be in your dungarees on a day off. The rest of the time you're in your, you know, your mid-grade, not dress, but mid-grade uniform, your work uniform, right? He's sitting at a very, very large desk. Like the desk is abnormally deep and abnormally wide. On the desk are book covers, like lots of them. They're very colorful book covers. Some of the books are closed. Some of the books are opened. But all the books are like the same size. They're like this big. That about does it. I can get that on camera. They're about that big. And they're flat. There's no pages. They're just like book covers with no book inside. And behind him is several shelves from floor to ceiling, wrapping around the desk on 3 sides, like Mac has it set up there somewhat. And it's full of these books. And all the books are just book covers, and they're all exactly the same height. There's no difference between the book heights. So it just looks like pinstripes of colors, you know? And she writes all this detail, right? And went into more detail than I will right now. So he's in this very small room. He's got this gigantic desk. He's got these book covers with no book inside. It's all very, very confusing. She couldn't make head nor tails of it. Okay. She did timestamp, you know. So it turns out that it was his day off. They got that part right. You know, that he was in casual clothes, right? They got that part right. He was in a small room. Not his work area and not his lounge area, but this small room.
Huh.
because they asked him on his day off if he would play records for the ship.
He's doing the DJ booth thing.
Right. And the time does work out where he was, when she did this, he was just getting ready to start. So, how did she get all that? Because that wasn't his job, and that's the sort of thing that they randomly ask people to do. Had never considered that they might ask someone of his rank to do that on their day off. That's a little odd, actually. Maybe they didn't have enough people or whatever. That's something you ask like an E4 to do, not something you ask an E7 to do. Right. Okay. Yeah, so in his apology letter, he was asked to spin records for the ship all day, and that's why he got distracted and forgot to do it, which is great because otherwise it wouldn't have worked out. It would have been him in his lounge on his bunk, something like that, which is totally predictable. And if he'd have done it, he'd have wrote about her in her living room, which he knew what it looked like. And what the hell are you going to describe? What is it that would be part of that wouldn't just be your bias? So it actually worked out better that it didn't work out. And what do you guys make of that? Is just that my mom had superpowers that it's just coincidence?
I mean, I think it's, kind of useless for the conversation to bring up the idea that maybe she made up part of the story or something like that. So let's just say that happened exactly how you just related it. If that even happened once, then we have a mystery on our hands, and apparently that didn't just happen once. I mean, you described remote viewing or whatever. I mean, that's
sure.
You report, that's a report of actually a really successful one. Usually there's not that many elements that are hit with those experiments, but there is a body of evidence that there's something like remote viewing that people do. I think it's a real phenomenon. Because I haven't just heard it from, people that I trust like you. I've heard it, there's been I've read papers on it and stuff like that. And I think there's something to it, but I don't know what it means in terms of God and stuff. I think it, and I think what, we definitely can say that whatever's happening there, we can't describe as supernatural, just definitionally.
Right. Right. It's not supernatural. It's just something that happens that we can't quite explain yet.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know what the implications of it are. It's actually sort of terrifying. I mean, imagine if we all at will could just kind of beam our consciousness to any part of the universe that we wanted to at any time. I mean, ideas like privacy would have to go out the window,
Yes, it would. Well,
yeah.
it would certainly compromise privacy, no doubt.
Right. Maybe we could learn how to erect some kind of structures against that, like against people's vision approaching us or something like that, like some kind of, counter to the remote viewing.
I was having this conversation with someone and they brought up what you're bringing up now. And they brought up the example, or the conversation brought up and they were talking about and said, the X-Men, where one of them has a helmet trying to find people and the other guy's got a helmet to block him out.
Right.
So he can't be found.
Right.
It seems like it logically follows that you would go, oh, well, this group would want to improve it because they're being honest. This group would want to be dishonest, so they're trying to block it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Is that what's going on in this painting in the top right corner here? Is that a helmet?
I don't know what that painting is. I'm using someone else's channel right now. Someone else's service.
Oh, I see two angels.
I think it's actually an angel and a white devil. The devil is white there.
Oh,
because he has no hair and he's got horns and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And they're looking at the earth. And there's a moon between them. I think something like that.
I think it's pretty. They each have one wing.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
It's not
perhaps if they hug each other and act as one animal, they can fly.
Yeah. Aw.
Man. Hey, what's that watch you're wearing there, Richard? I like watches.
It's a self-winding. It's a Timex, batteryless,
Cool.
extremely low maintenance.
Mm.
It's
funny.
not a skeleton. It's not a skeleton watch where you can see through parts of the face to see the machines, because I don't care. That's just, I don't
No.
need that. I need it to keep time.
Yes, it's something that's kind of cool about the watch biz, is that they have, well, I have all these highfalutin, super expensive watches.
Mhm.
There'll also be, from time to time, someone will spot a Longines or a Timex, and it'll become quite popular because they just love the design so much. Which, so like at there used to be a convention called Basel World for Basel, Switzerland. And one year there was a Longines Classic 1945. This was a few years ago. It was sort of a redo. And it was everyone's favorite. And at a convention where every other watch is 50,000, 75,000, this one was $2,000, which is still a lot. That's more expensive than any watch I have. But that's nothing in the watch biz, but it was a favorite.
I would never spend that much on a watch. This is actually, I really recommend this one. The reason that I purchased it was twofold. It doesn't need a battery. You don't have to pull out the little crank and wind it, because it winds with the motion of a human being.
Yes.
It's got a counterbalance weight in it. And although I did buy a plastic protector for the crystal, usually a watch will last me something like 2 or 3 months before I smash it.
Oh.
And because I'm just not, I can't work and think about how hard I'm pushing my wrist against something.
Yes.
That's my kind of work. I'm like physical. I'm like prying. I'm like crawling around things in the way all the time. And usually, I mean, I'd almost given up on ever finding a watch that would last. I've had this one for about 2 years now, which is amazing for me.
That's pretty good. There is an alternative, but you wouldn't. The problem with a lot of watches that have batteries is that time goes by, and then you forget, and then the battery leaks because it's too old, and you didn't replace it in time. But there is a brand of Casios called G-Shocks, and they can be under $100 to a couple of $1,000, depending on the model. But they're frequently quite beautiful. But G-Shock means like sort of G, like gravity.
G-forces, gravitational.
Yeah, G-forces. And the military likes them. They're inexpensive, and they're supposed to be very, very hard wearing. So if you ever want, when this watch goes, you may want to give one of those a try. Wow, did this ever go off topic? Thanks.
Not really. Is there something off topic? I'm curious.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure there is.
Come on.
Isn't it all relative anyway?
Good.
I can't wear a watch. I'm not a jewelry guy. I can't even wear my wedding ring. It's just too distracting.
Ah. Well, you work in a restaurant, right? Maybe people don't like to wear stuff on their fingers when they're handling food.
That's part of it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly, I mean, it was long before I worked in restaurants. So I would just like fiddle with, if I wore a watch, I'd fiddle with it all day and take it on and off, and it'd be distracting. And it was the same. I got into this habit of spinning my wedding ring. But then, if you want to hear an interesting story, not too interesting, but I was wearing my wedding ring, and I was riding my bike next to the Willamette River in Oregon, and I found a rope swing somebody had set up, and I decided to go for it. And when I let go of the rope over the river, my ring didn't let go of the rope, and it jammed my finger.
Ouch.
I broke the knuckle, actually, and then I fell. Luckily, the river was very cold, so it immediately helped with the swelling, but I still couldn't get the ring off in time. and it was months before the swelling went down enough. I refused to cut it. My wife made the ring, so it's really special to me.
Oh,
But yeah, finally got it off, and now I keep it in a drawer. But I will never wear it again. Rings are dangerous.
Yeah, there's a thing, I can't remember what it's called, but somebody trips over something and the ring catches on something and they end up de-sleeving a finger.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that could have happened to me in that
Oh,
moment.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it happened to Jimmy Kimmel, I think it was.
Oh my.
I'll look that up.
Yeah, decloving is no fun.
yeah. In going into basic training in the military around heavy equipment, one of the technical tapes that you watch is people getting off of heavy equipment, getting a wedding band or watch or whatever caught. So they recommend against really tough watch bands.
Oh, sure.
They recommend against that you should wear a weak one. And they recommend against any kind of like hard wedding band whatsoever. Yeah. And they tell you, oh, take it off and put it on your dog chain or put it in a pocket or something, but don't wear that around heavy equipment. And then they show at the end of that, they show you pictures of finger bones that have been de-sleeved of their flesh by wedding bands.
Oh.
Yes, they do.
Okay, I'm putting this into both public and private chat. It's a video where Jimmy Kimmel, or whatever his name is, Jimmy Fallon, not Jimmy Kimmel, explains his finger injury. And you can see him there. It's his wedding ring.
Oh, wow.
That's completely bandaged up. But I'll leave for you to investigate if you feel.
I think that's
I've seen enough in my life. Everyone else can have that. I'm fine.
I don't want to think about that anymore.
No.
Okay, guys. So I made a promise, which means we have to wrap this up in an hour because I expected it to be an hour. But I thank you both for coming by. Closing thoughts.
I have none. So I'll just go, and then sign off.
All right, then. Mac.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys as usual. And I will, I think I'll spend some time this week in between now and next Wednesday trying to catch people looking at me. So that sounds like fun.
It's really interesting.
I'll tell you what happens.
Be sure to track both negative and positive hits and look for your own biases because that sort of thing can be very biased.
Totally.
It's difficult to be honest, but the key for me in all remote viewing, prayer, Akashic record exercises is to not guess, but allow the thing to come to you. And weirdly enough, it does.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All right.
It's been real.
See ya. Thanks.
Bye.
Till next time, guys. I look forward to the day that we're all great friends in heaven. But until next show, have peace.
Bye for now.